For most of the season, the most dominant team in the NBA has been the Phoenix Suns. Besides the fact that this team is very balanced with 2 shot creators, 3 wings that can shoot and play defense, and 2 centers that are very athletic, Monty Williams has implemented a system that has worked very effectively. Today I'm going to do a crash course on the Phoenix Suns offense and the tendencies of some of their best players. But before we do so, if you want an ad-free platform where you can learn about something besides basketball, then I would recommend going to Skillshare. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Essentially, they are an online learning community with thousands of classes used to explore creativity and learn new skills. They offer classes ranging from digital photography to entrepreneurship and study strategies. As a full-time student that was looking to study more effectively, I have personally benefited from Ali Abdal's class about studying for exams. From this class, I learned how to use the PEG system to improve my recall, which helped me do well on a recent exam. So if you're interested, use the link in the description below, as the first 1,000 people to join will get a 1-month free trial. Now to the video. One important aspect of their offense revolves around the elbow. In fact, the Suns call this play the elbow, as you can hear Chris Paul yell. Essentially, with Chris Paul as the ball handler, you have a player, which in most cases is Bridges, curling from the right elbow to the left and playing off of it. If he can get behind his defender, this will turn into a layup, but he doesn't necessarily need to do that. For example, instead of curling, Bridges becomes a screener, which flows into a double screen, and Biyombo dives to the cup for a layup. Here, Bridges does the same thing, and it turns into a pick and roll on the right side, which leads to an Aiden dunk. Sometimes Bridges will flare out, but it's to create space so Booker can use the pick before pulling up for a jumper. Now, why is Bridges the main guy for this action? Well, it's because Chris Paul and Devin Booker really like using the right hand. Here, Booker is in Bridges' spot, but he goes back to the right side, which then flows into a pick and roll. The only times you'll really see Booker use a left elbow is if he's curling off a down screen, because if the defender closes to him, he can use his right hand to get to the basket, which is pretty common for a lot of right-handed shooters, like when JJ Redick was on the Clippers. Because of Booker and Paul's tendencies, the Suns need someone that can help balance the floor. When you look at Bridges' shot chart, he is shooting at a high level from the left mid-range area. And I'm sure part of the reason is that the Suns coaching staff has told him this is where he can get shots for himself. He tends to prefer going left than right for any mid-range shot, or turns right shoulder for the fadeaway. So because this elbow play has multiple options that puts the Suns' best players in positions where they are in their sweet spots, this makes it hard for any opposing defense to stop this action. The other action that the Suns use quite often is a dribble handoff that flows into a double ball screen. The initial ball handler, which is usually Chris Paul, will dribble to the left-hand side of the court, hand it to the guard that's coming around, and become a screener himself, so it turns into a double screen. This can usually catch any defender that's not physical with Booker, and either can turn into a switch or a wide open shot. For example, Keldon Johnson is nowhere near Booker, which makes it easy for him to use the screens and get an open 3. Here, Harden isn't attached, which forces a switch, and Booker gets fouled. Now, depending on who comes around, the big man or another player besides Chris Paul might be the one that initiates the action. For example, here, because Chris Paul is the guy that's coming around the double screens, McGee is the one with the ball, which eventually creates a switch, and Paul can get to the elbow and make his patented mid-range jumper. Here, Bridges is the one handing the ball, and Aiden slips the pick, which forces Kyrie to drop down, and Bridges has an open 3. This action is used to help Chris Paul and Booker get more space to drive into the lane and kick it out for shooters or get open shots. Based on how teams are playing, they will adjust accordingly. One of the more interesting aspects was when Chris Paul says,
asked of him, he's done. Last call being a pro.
which is supposed to be an ISO for Booker by using this action. Knowing that the Nets were switching, Paul anticipated that Harden was going to guard Booker here, but Bruce Brown actually does a good job standing his ground. At times, teams will call plays to allow their stars to isolate with a good matchup, which Paul was trying to do here. Now sometimes, instead of a dribble handoff, the Suns will just start using the double screen, which naturally works very effectively. The initial defender has to fight over 2 consecutive ball screens, which is difficult in itself, and with a crafty player like Chris Paul who is adept with his right hand, it is really hard to stop in general. In a double screen, the Suns would typically bring the opposing team's worst defender and their big man to either get a switch or a lane to the rim. For example, here the Suns bring Doug McDermott into the pick and roll, which helps Paul get a mismatch. Even though he doesn't make it, this is a shot he likes. In other cases, they'll use a double screen as a decoy to set up a down screen for a shooter or scorer. For example, here Paul uses the double screen, but Waj Biyombo set a down screen for Cam Johnson, which gets him a lane for the moment. But here, the Suns execute it perfectly. So with Payton as the initial ball handler, McGee sets a down screen for Booker, which turns into a switch. From here, Johnson has to drop down because of the mismatch, and Cam Johnson gets a wide open 3 in the corner. The one thing that you might have noticed again is that most of these actions go from the left hand side to the right side. This is again because the Suns want their ball handlers or shot makers to get it to their strong hand and make a play that way. When I say that Chris Paul loves his right hand, this is really not an exaggeration. This season, Chris Paul has shot 133 mid-range shots from the right side of the floor compared to 58 shots on the left-hand side. Now, as easy it is to say to force him to his left hand, it's not as simple as it sounds. When you try forcing him left, his most notable move is the snake, where he'll get back to his right hand and get to where he wants on the floor. He also has enough moves to get back to his right hand, which makes it hard for defenses to really contain him. And with Booker, he has also learned this as well. When he snakes, he usually tries to get to the free throw line, which is his signature shot, especially because big men have to respect his speed, and this gives him open shots in that area. So next time you watch a game, try to see if you can recognize either the elbow action or the dribble handoff play. If that's difficult, observe and see if you can detect how often Chris Paul and Booker try to get to their right hand. If you guys enjoy this type of video, please let me know in the comments below, and I could do a crash course on other NBA teams' offenses. Besides that, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.